Over the years, I've done a Batman Day vlog in front of a shelf full of Bat merchandise. So I thought this year, let's take a look at the menagerie of items you can collect when you have absolutely no life. The bottom shelf, as you can see, is not really Bat-related. Mostly VHS tapes that I haven't watched in a while, or some I never got around to watching at all, and the empty boxes of Gundam model kits because the collector's mentality won't let me throw them out. The Bat movies and shows get their own shelf, in part so I could save space in my DVD cabinet. Now there's some stuff I haven't watched, like the original Batman serials from the 40s, or Return to the Batcave. I don't own the 66 series because, while I can appreciate what it is and what it was going for, it's just not something I really want to own. And also because of space, you can notice the Funko Pops there, which are the only Bat-related Pops I own thus far. Mr. Freeze you might remember from my unboxing video in my first season, and Batgirl and Catwoman I actually picked up on my birthday several years ago as kind of a little treat for myself, even though I don't particularly care about celebrating my birthday anymore. The mini Batman figure here and the vehicles with the white emblem on them, probably the oldest Bat merchandise I have since I got them when I was a kid shortly after Returns came out. And the Batmobile with the yellow emblem, I think that's a Hot Wheels that just kind of came into my possession somehow, I don't really recall. The miniature animated femme fatales behind them in the special casings I picked up on eBay, and, there's kind of an unpleasant story about that. They were packed tight together, but one of them managed to break off, and another one looked like it was missing. And eventually I found it underneath its stand. I couldn't figure out how that could have been possible, and I figured the guy was selling me some broken merchandise. Maybe I was wrong, but in either case, I just glued the figures back together, and here we are. And on top of the figurines, I have the Promotional Toys that came in boxes of cereal for The Dark Knight. A couple of missile launchers that look kind of weird, and Joker and Batman. But weird thing is, Batman in The Dark Knight was played by Christian Bale, but this one looks an awful lot like George Clooney. And in the back there's a pint glass with Batman charging forward in a classic design, and a tumbler with a straw. Naturally, I haven't actually drunk out of them because, well, I'm weird. Someday I'll use them for their intended purpose, but not today. And in the back you can also see the booklets that came with the Batgirl and Black Bat chess figures I picked up some time ago that you might recall from my 100th episode. On top of those figures, as you can see, there's a belt buckle, a couple of magnets that I haven't stuck anywhere, a animated Batgirl maquette, Best Buy exclusive figures that came with movies such as Public Enemies, Under the Red Hood, Crisis on Two Earths, and so on. A couple years ago, my brother got me this wooden bat tie with a magnetic latch, and I don't usually dress up that often, but, I've been meaning to wear it somewhere. There was our other brother's wedding last year, but it didn't seem to be in the best taste. And then there's the psychiatric journal that came with the Arkham Asylum video game collector's edition. I want to say I've opened it up and read it, but I can't say for sure. Next shelf up are a couple of statues, one directly from the animated series, and the other is an Alex Ross-designed black and white statue. And behind them is a gray and blue Batman notebook I got from my nieces and nephew a few Christmases ago, and I haven't written anything in it yet, because, if I do, I want it to be kind of special, for the kids. I don't want to just write down meaningless jargon. And in the front here, we see a little figurine of Batman on a bat cycle. That was a gift from the parents of the aforementioned children. And next to him is this motorized figure where the button is supposed to make a lollipop spin around. But, obviously I've since consumed the lollipop. And I've been meaning to maybe make something to put on top of it, maybe a little bat symbol, so that'll spin around, but I probably have to replace the battery by now. There's also some buttons. The larger one I bought at a convention. Smaller two next to it are from figures I bought, and then there are these little plastic rings that came off some cupcakes I bought. There's a tiny bat signal I bought from Barnes & Noble, and they're all in front of the collector's edition stand for the Dark Knight that came with a bat pod and a funky little symbol to house the Blu-rays in, which is really friggin' neat. And you can't really tell very well, but behind that is the Terry Mcginnis figure, which was the 200th figure, and it's basically on this stand with a little lever so his arms can bend up and spread out his cape. So it's not highly articulated is what I'm saying. On the other end of the shelf, there are a couple of small Batman figures that I picked up at a dollar store on a couple of occasions on a whim, and the 66 design of the Batmobile, a model kit I got from my sister and brother-in-law several years ago, the Batgirl sitting on the Bat Signal from the animated series design I might have picked up at a convention or maybe at a comic shop, I forget which, but it would be several years until I picked up its Catwoman counterpart, which, I picked up on eBay just like those miniature figurines I mentioned a while ago, and also there was some damage when it arrived. I guess a box of perfume or something landed on it because ISIS had broken off inside the safe and needed my brother's help to glue her back on. And if you look in the back, there's a Bat ice cube tray, which I have used a couple of times since I bought it, but getting the ice out can be tricky and a little annoying. And next to that is a push puppet that topped a small tube of candies, and as silly as it was, and kinda still is, I bought it because of an hilarious thing you can do with it.
I don't use lethal force, but I still invite you to the gun show.
Top shelf has statues from the now defunct Warner Brothers store. I got all of them as gifts except for Catwoman. Picked her up when the store was going out of business, and kind of a shame because they had some really cool stuff. And in front of them are these Microman Batman figures, a Batgirl, a Catwoman, two different versions of Batman that are normally seen in the comics throughout the years, and one that looks like a high-tech Iron Man looking thing, kind of puts Batwing to shame. And each end has a different Bat Pez dispenser, which I bought because, of course, Batman. On top of the shelf itself, you see an As-Bats figure and a blue and gray counterpart at each end of the shelf. And behind them are both the cards from the packaging and postcards that came with Detective Comics 500, if I'm not mistaken. For the longest time, I just kept them in the book, but eventually I'm like, no, I'll put them in the stand with these figures, because why not? And between them are a couple of Christmas ornaments I've gotten, mostly from my mom over the years, and a Subway kids meal toy that I bought a kids meal for when I used to work at Subway way back when. Probably more like 20 years ago. Jeez, I'm old. Behind them is a replica of the Batarang design from the Arkham Asylum game, and behind that is the collector's edition case. And ordinarily there would be a Batman Lido lamp that I would also have on top of the shelf, but I've kind of been using that as extra lighting for the show. And that's the stuff on my Bat shelf. Yes, I know there were other things I could have talked about for Batman Day, but honestly, given the year 2020's been, this was the only thing I could think to talk about that wasn't outright depressing or speculative rambling. So if you liked it, great. If you hated it, write DC Comics and tell them to hire me so you'll never have to hear me rant about my Bat merchandise ever again. Have a good day, take care of yourselves, and God bless.